Okay, done. YouTube live streaming started.
Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to all the dear participants, especially our young students, student participants, our very energetic research participants, researchers, our very respected faculty participants, our distinguished speakers, Honorable Principal Ma'am, and all faculty members of Brahmananda Keshav Chandra College. Welcome you to day one of the International Webinar Series, Part 2 on Biodiversity Conservation and Sustainable Development, Issues, Challenges, and Outcomes. We are very happy that we could manage to organize the day one of Part 2 with a large number of participants. We have had a very good response, and it is so heartwarming to see that a large number of young population are interested in making some change in biodiversity conservation. An after effect and an afterthought of the pandemic. So we really welcome one and all, and let's roll on for day one. We have very interesting talks coming up. So I would welcome each one of you to get settled down. Maybe we'll take a few minutes more. And as I get a nod from our host or our co-host, I would like to begin with the session. Do we have both our speakers with us?
Yes, Dr. Ghosh, both have joined in. Professor Sharma is also there, and Shri Ranjan Chatterjee have also joined in.
That's wonderful.
So we have both as well, right.
I welcome both of our distinguished speakers and especially ask our faculty members, Dr. Shongita Gangopadhyay, to kindly give a welcome address to all our participants and our distinguished speakers. Dr. Gangopadhyay.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome all the participants and the esteemed speakers in the International Webinar Series on Biodiversity Conservation and Sustainable Development, organized by the Postgraduate Department of Botany, Brahmananda Keshav Chandra College, Kolkata, India. Today, we all have assembled in this virtual platform to start the second part of this international webinar series We have recently successfully completed the first part of this series, and we are overwhelmed by the large number of participation. Biodiversity conservation and sustainable development essentially depends on people's participation and effective regulations. This has led us to discuss the role of government and academic institutions in biodiversity conservation today. We are delighted to have Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee with us today. He was former advisor to National Green Tribunal, India. We also have with us Professor Shanti Swarup Sharma, Head of Botany Department, School of Life Sciences, Sikkim University, Gangtok, India. Listening to both of them is a perfect blend of informations from both the spheres, government and academics. I heartily welcome them on behalf of the organizing team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gangopadhyay. You have absolutely given us in a nutshell our purpose for the webinar series. And with that, I would like to start the inaugural session. We invite our respected principal, Madam, Professor Papia Chakraborty, who is the force behind this webinar series, to kindly deliver her inaugural address. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. I welcome our eminent speakers and the participants on behalf of Brahmananda Keshav Chandra College. Today, we have a very essential topic on role of government in conservation of biodiversity. This is really a very crucial role, and also it involves, if it involves all of us, the people, the commoners, then only we can survive in this situation, especially in the new normal time. Now, as we all know, that we have the government regulating authority, that is the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, MOEF, which has many regulatory forces under it. It has there is an act, the Environment Protection Act of 1986, which was later amended in 1991 with the mandate of preventing environmental pollution in all its forms and to tackle specific environmental problems that are peculiar to different parts of the country. Now, the powers of this are coastal regulation zone, eco-sensitive zone, environment clearance, environmental labs, environmental standards, hazardous substance management, loss of ecology, noise pollution, ozone layer depletion, water pollution. Now here, the eco-sensitive zones, these are all the biosphere reserves, the coastal regulation zones, the marine reserves, the marine environment, the regulation regarding that. And then we had the Forest Conservation Act of 1980, which was later modified to Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act in 2006, which really dealt with the tribal people who survive on the traditional knowledge in the forest, all the forest products, which we really want to know. And then came the Wildlife Conservation WPA Act in 1972, and later on, the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau was set up, where the wildlife protection was enforced. And as we all know, the forestry sector is facing many challenges, like forest fires, illegal felling of trees, illegal grazing, then encroachments on forest land, degradation of forest ecosystem, etc. So, to maintain all these, a compensatory afforestation fund management and planning authority, CAMPA, has been constituted to promote afforestation and regeneration activities. And we have the National Green Tribunal Act 2010, which we will come to know the subjects related, the act related things we'll come to know from our eminent speaker, Mr. Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee, which he'll explain us, and we welcome you, sir. We'll hear from you regarding this. And the most effective implementation of the government is the National Biodiversity Authority. The Biodiversity Act 2002 and the rules were passed in 2004, where they have the BMCs in states. That is the Biodiversity Management Committee in all states. So the state biodiversity boards, they have the biodiversity management committees in the local municipal areas also, and district-wise also. Now these authorities, they deal with several aspects of the local issues, local challenges, the sustainable development of the local biodiversity. And they deal with the PBR, that is the People's Biodiversity Register, which is eco-restoration of the local biodiversity, conservation and sustainable utilization of the biological resources available locally, and protection of traditional knowledge is being recorded in the PBR. So I also think we should know more about our Indian biodiversity hotspots. And today we have with us another speaker, very eminent, who will deal with us the medicinal plants aspect in the Himalayan region. So I welcome you all, and I welcome the participants to hear from our eminent speakers, and I thank the organizers for organizing such a nice webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that wonderful inaugural speech, giving us a platform to begin today's deliberation. Before we go to the technical sessions, I would request our co-host to kindly give a glimpse of the activities that the Department of Botany, the UG and PG Department of Botany, Brahmananda Keshav Chandra College at Kolkata, is carrying out over the years in the field of biodiversity conservation, motivating our young minds. So let's take a glimpse of what we have been doing. Host, kindly play the slideshow.
Yeah.
This is a two-day plantation drive. This is a two-day plantation drive titled Green Canvas. What is more significant about it is that it was in collaboration with the NGO-UDGYOG, where we have our alumni from the Department of Botany, and she had taken the initiative to get back to us and start a collaboration with the Department of Botany in the fields of biodiversity conservation. Next. This is a foray into the fungal diversity in our college campus. We are very, very lucky to have a very green campus full of biodiversity, which we have been recording for many years through our green audit projects with the students. Next. This is a PBR study, People's Biodiversity Register, which our students have been carrying out for many years, especially an initiative of the Eco Club of the Botany Department. They have been assessed internally on their work. They look at the flora, fauna, and even the human dimension of the biodiversity around the Bon Hooghly Lake near the institution. Next. This is an Eco Club initiative of Botany Department, where a wetland corridor of the college has been conserved as biodiversity site under the able guidance of our principal ma'am, Professor Papia Chakraborty. And we were very proud, as I said the other day, that we have named it after Madam Janaki Ammal, who was the first lady to get a PhD in botany. And she was also the director of BSI during the times of Jawaharlal Nehru. Next. These are field excursions. We carry out long distance field excursions to other phytogeographical areas with our students, which are very exciting, very challenging, but huge learning experiences. and our students take them down memory lane. This is a celebration of Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose's birth anniversary. We do it every year, and we have students' presentation of posters and other works that they do in the field of science. Next. Here, one of our faculty is teaching our UG students how to collect soil samples for microbiological studies. We feel in future they will be utilizing these techniques. We were very proud to organize an extension lecture with Professor Gopal Maity of Kalyani University, one of the know-hows of taxonomy in India, who gave us a hands-on training on Angiosperm taxonomy in 2020. This is a very recent achievement on our part, where we had a mushroom cultivation, which was successfully initiated by one of our faculties. And the students were very excited about it, and we intend to go further in this area. Next. This is also very memorable for us, where our UG students, guided by our faculty, had participated in the National Science Day at East Calcutta Girls College on the topic role of women in water management and conservation. And they had done very well in the presentation. The IQSC, that is the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of our college, and all the science departments of our college together had organized the National Science Day in 2020. And every science department, the UG and PG students had presented different branches of their work to the school students, and it was a very exciting and learning moment. Next. This is another presentation by our senior students, our 4th semester PG students, who presented a poster in a national seminar organized by Ramakrishna Mission Vidya Mandir, Belur. And the title of the seminar was How to Checkmate Cancer, the Emperor of Melodies. And our students did a very good work in presenting the proteomic biomarkers of cancer and preventive strategies with phytomolecules and silico approach, guided by our faculty, of course. Next. Host. Next slide, please. These are our final year students. So that's it. I think we'll conclude here and we'll start with our technical sessions. I invite our senior faculty member, Dr. Dinesh Haldar. Sir, are you online? Kindly switch on your video, Dr. Dinesh Haldar. Sir, I invite you to give an introduction to our first speaker, Sri Ranjan Chatterjee, who is going to give a lecture in the technical session 1. Would you kindly introduce Sri Ranjan Chatterjee to all our audience? Namaskar, sir. Welcome.
Unmute. Dinesh, unmute.
Ranjan, sir, could you unmute yourself?
Dinesh, unmute yourself. Dinesh,
and Dr. Dinesh Haldar, could you unmute yourself, please? Dr. Dinesh Haldar, could you unmute yourself? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, that's
Yes.
good. We can hear you, sir. No, again, you have muted. Unmute yourself, sir. Dr. Dinesh Haldar, Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee, I request both of you to kindly unmute yourself. Just go and
Thank you.
on the
Thank you,
audio.
Dr. Ghosh.
Just a minute, Dr. Haldar.
Okay.
Our first speaker, Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee, would you just click on the button? Host, please enable his audio. Host, kindly enable the audio of our first speaker. Co-host? Yes, sir, that's done.
That's done?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you so much. Yes, please, Dr. Dinesh Haldar, kindly introduce our first speaker, Sri Ranjan Chatterjee.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. I have the pleasure and honor to introduce our first keynote speaker, Sri Ranjan Chatterjee, retired IAS officer and former member of National Green Tribunal, New Delhi, India. Today, Sri Chatterjee will speak on National Green Tribunal, some aspect. Sri Chatterjee had joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1976. He served as Joint Secretary, Civil Aviation, Government of India, and Chairman and Managing Director, Bon Hooghly Helicopters Limited in 1995 to 1996, where he played a significant role in restructuring and brand positioning of organization. He also served the position of Chairman, Airport Authority of India, 1996 to 1998. As a Principal Secretary, Education and Forest Department, Government of Meghalaya, 2001 to 2004. Joint Secretary, Ministry of Defence, Government of India and Department of Defence, Production, till March 2007. As Chief Secretary, Government of Meghalaya, till 2009, where he was instrumental in setting up three key institutions in the state: Indian Institute of Management, Indian Institute of Fashion Technology, and the Public Health Foundation of India as a part of broader comprehensive development mandate. He also served as consultant, Planning Commission, Government of India, looking after the environment, forest, environment and climate change issues. After his retirement, he was appointed to the National Green Tribunal as an expert member on 2nd January 2013, where he shared benches with former Supreme Court and High Court judges to decide environmental and forest issues focused on air, water, and industrial pollution topics, including attending circuit benches of NGT across the country of local hearings. Apart from the administrative responsibilities and management, Sri Chatterjee has also been very passionate about teaching. Currently, he is a visiting professor at National Law School University, NLSU, Bangalore, and he has been periodically delivering lectures at LBS, National Academy of Administration, Missouri, NLS, Guwahati. He also been addressing seminar on environment and forest related subjects at IIT Delhi, Guwahati, Jaipur, and Shillong. So with a short introduction, I welcome Sri Chatterjee once again to this webinar.
Thank you, Dr.
Sir,
Haldar.
please.
Thank you, Dr. Haldar. That was such an illustrious background of Sri Ranjan Chatterjee. Sir, I think you have a lifelong experience in such varied areas that it really makes it so interesting to hear from you. So I open the floor to you. So you can interact with the students and with the participants, or you can start with your lecture first, as you would like to go, sir. The floor is open to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. I feel very humbled as I address the students, postgraduate students, the faculty, and many other participants across the country, organized by the Brahmanand Keshav Chandra College, Kolkata. And I think Professor Gangopadhyay, who initiated the entire thing today, has set the bar rather high, wherein she mentioned about the role of the responsibility of the government and the coastal zone regulations, the biosphere reserves. So it covers a very wide spectrum. So I would like to speak on a very limited issue with respect to the National Green Tribunal, I shall introduce the subject briefly for about 10 to 12 minutes, and the rest of the time I shall spend on certain important cases that I have had the good fortune of um, being part of as part of the bench of the National Green Tribunal, and one particular case as part of when I was Chief Secretary of Meghalaya. Am I audible, please? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're absolutely audible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, okay, right. So if you, to set the ball rolling, kindly recall that in 2015, on the 26th of January 2015, the Republic Day, President Obama of the United States, who is considered to be a very eminent president, even if you count with many of his predecessors and the present incumbent to that post also, who's held with a very high regard across the international world. When he visited India, those days, it was also felt that Delhi is a very polluted place. And there was a screaming headline one of those days that Delhi is perhaps the world's most polluted capital in the whole world. And one day's breathing of the air in and around Delhi and actually amounts to an equivalent of smoking 40 cigarettes a day. Now, you can imagine if you have a friend who is smoking 40 cigarettes a day, what would you tell him? You'll ask him to leave it immediately because it is considered extremely dangerous. But can you leave Delhi at that point of time? How many people have the option of leaving Delhi and the suburbs of Delhi in Gurgaon, Noida, and all these places which are highly polluted? So this brings us to the main issue of environmental pollution. Now, what is the environment? Environment is everything around us. At home, we have the environment at home with your spouse and children. There is an office environment. There is an environment outside. So Albert Einstein had defined environment in perhaps the most succinct terms when he said, environment is everything except myself. You leave yourself and the whole world is environment. It depends, which kind of environment you're talking of. We are talking basically of the lithosphere, which is the outer crust of the earth, the hydrosphere, that is all oceans, lakes, rivers, the liquid, vapor or ice, and the atmosphere, which is the gases around the earth. So if you take that into account, the question is environment at peril? Now, the biodiversity experts would agree with me when they say, if I say that, if you take care of the environment takes care of you. But the real question is, are you taking care of the environment? Are you concerned about the environment to take care of it? So it is largely when you address these questions, you come to the National Green Tribunal. Now, what is it? It is a specialized statutory body to adjudicate on environmental disputes. It's a specialized body. It adjudicates on environmental disputes. The word dispute is very important. There has to be a dispute. Two people have to protest. One person has to be an environmental damager, and somebody else has to come in and say that, look, I object to this for such and such reasons, and you have to go through law in the whole process. So it was set up on the 18th of October 2010 by an act of parliament. It had two earlier predecessors, which were very short-lived and which had a lot of lacunae. And so the National Green Tribunal, which was set up, has stood the test of time, and today we are 10 years old with that institution. Now, what is, what is the inspiration behind it? The main inspiration behind the National Green Tribunal is the Constitution of India, Article 21, which includes right to a healthy environment. Right to life includes, Article 21 deals with right to life, and right to life includes right to a healthy environment. Now, it is also in consonance with the Sustainable Development Goals. And what does it do? It mandates enforcement of a legal right, giving relief of compensation to persons or property who have suffered injury. The word injury is very important. It not only needs to be defined, but it also needs to be quantified. Now, all of you who have children at home or grandchildren, or as the case may be, when the child gets even the minutest of, cut or a blister or anything, you say the child has suffered injury, and you disproportionately come to the rescue of the child, saying that, oh my God, how will you do? How will you cope with it? I'll do this, I'll do that. Even if it doesn't actually, much more than the medicine, it is your attitude which makes a little difference, Whereas over a period of time, many of you are ladies who are having to manage both your workplace as well as your home. You suffer a major blister, you wouldn't be able to say it in the manner of a child that, oh, I've suffered so much and things like that. You will, mostly take it that, oh, it has happened. Maybe after a few days, it'll become all right. So it's a question of quantifying the injury. It's a scientific term. And how much injury has been caused both to your property or to yourself. The law lays down, there's a law of torts, of giving compensation. Now, I will narrate a very interesting small case with regard to the law of torts and the compensation. I think around the turn of the century, that means when we were still in the previous century, 2 centuries ago rather, 1900, around that time, there in a factory work, a lady had lost her thumb. She had lost her thumb. And so she claimed that she wanted to get about 4,000 pounds for the loss of that thumb. So the judge asked her a simple question that, madam, I know that you have suffered the loss of a thumb, but don't you think 4,000 pounds is a bit too much on the higher side? So her reply is very classic. She says, not if you consider that that was the thumb by which I could control my husband. So, so it is all, in a real terms, loss of anything of a part of your body, whether it is your thumb or your hand or your arm, or you lose your life. These are all quantified things, and we are all in the process of evolving it and fine-tuning it, both in law as well as gradually through the case laws. Now, India, incidentally, is the world's 3rd country after Australia and New Zealand to have specialized environmental courts. And why is NGT a specialized environmental courts? You already have the high courts and the Supreme Court. No, the Law Commission of India felt that it is necessary to have specialized environmental courts where not only judges would be there, but also experts in the field of environment who have at least 15 years of experience in the field of environment, and or who have been environmental administrators for at least 5 years. So it is the role of the expert members of the Green Tribunal which gives the speciality, or which gives the special arm to the National Green Tribunal, as a specialized body, because they felt that judges by themselves may be excellent as judges, but they may not have the knowledge of environment to that extent. So they required that specialized people should be there. And I would also like to bring to your notice that, the law in India leading to the National Green Tribunal being created dates back to 1972, that of the Stockholm Declaration of United Nations, when Mrs. Gandhi had also, our Prime Minister had also, visited, and she gave that famous line speech over there where she said poverty is the biggest pollutant. Poverty itself is a very big pollutant. And then we went to the Rio de Janeiro conference in 1992. And so in the midst of all this, there was a lot of international pressure. So our laws came into being. Now, which are these important laws? Dr. Mrs. Gangopadhyay mentioned some of them. They are the 7 acts of parliament which the National Green Tribunal adjudicates on. These are the Water Prevention of Pollution Act 1974, the Water Cess Act 1977, the Forest Conservation Act 1980, the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. In fact, the Water Act and the Air Act are both very important. Environmental Protection Act 1986, which is again very important. The Public Liability Act of 1991 and the Biological Diversity Act of 2002. So NGT has been given the mandate to look after disputes relating to these 7 acts. The Wildlife Act, for instance, is not covered by the NGT. And another interesting feature of the National Green Tribunal is that it is governed by 3 principles, unlike the regular courts. And what are those principles? One is the principle of natural justice, not so much by law, but by the principles of natural justice, in the important sense that the Civil Procedure Code does not apply to the NGT. It can violate or go beyond the Civil Procedure Code, whereas ordinary high courts and honorable high courts and honorable Supreme Court have to comply with the Civil Procedure Code. NGT need not, as per the Act. The second one is the polluter pays principle. Now, this is again very important. Whosoever pollutes must pay for it. Like if you have done something wrong, you have to pay for it. And so for that, there will have to be a dispute, and the NGT will have to give a ruling, and nobody should go to the Supreme Court. And if they have gone to the Supreme Court must uphold what the NGT has done. So, and the third one is the precautionary principle. That means that you don't have to wait for an accident to actually take place. If you are able to prove that, look, somebody has damaged it to such an extent, that means if I am a farmer and I have a field, next to me, somebody has, the person who has the next farm, if he has sold it off to somebody who is making a brick kiln. Are you aware of this? Are you with me? Are you getting me, friends? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are very much.
So next to me, if in Dr. Ghosh sells off, supposing her field to some brick kiln, and that brick kiln, digs up the whole place with a view to taking the earth and using it for making bricks, then that is a big damage to me. Because what will happen is when the rain comes, all my topsoil will go into that. And so I can protest against it and say that, look, there needs to be a buffer, there needs to be something to protect my field. So you don't have to actually wait till my land caves in, but I can go and appeal to the NGT again by a suitable clause, and the NGT can take a decision under the principle of precautionary principle. So as a precautionary measure, prevention is better than cure. That is the idea. Now, having said that, NGT government or the parliament, framed the NGT and the laws with great expectations. And they said that appeals against the orders of the NGT cannot be tried by the High Court. It can be tried only by the Supreme Court. So if anybody has an objection, then that person will have to go to the Supreme Court, not to any High Court. Now, however, before I conclude, I would like to give a few criticisms which are leveled against the NGT over the last 10 years. First is, it is felt that NGT has overstepped its boundaries, It has led to certain overreach, judicial overreach of the NGT. Now, they have gone beyond their mandate. One such illustration is taking up cases suo moto. They said that NGT does not have the power to take up cases suo moto. In fact, NGT had entertained a few things suo moto and had taken it up without a dispute, whether anybody pointing out a dispute, but NGT had taken it up. So the High Court of Madras came in and stated that. They said that no, NGT cannot do that, So then another thing people have complained is that NGT, there are a lot of pendencies. You have not, the whole idea of NGT was to render speedy justice in environmental cases, but this has not happened. But the truth is that, NGT in the last 10 years has disposed of about 30,000 cases, 29,800 something, and about 3,000 cases are still pending. So that's not a big number. I don't think it is a valid criticism. The most important difficulty with the NGT is government is not well disposed towards the NGT. Government feels that NGT is coming in the way of their developmental projects. Government wants to do so many things. They want quick environmental clearances, whereas you actually find that people have come and protested against big dams coming up in Arunachal Pradesh, against so many projects in Gujarat and all over the country, where the project proponents or the industrialists have tried to sidestep environmental clearances and have tried to get the clearances, quote unquote, through hook and by crook. I would not like to go further on this particular subject, but the government today feels that this is not okay. So that is why they are amending the EIA. There is a lot of debate going on currently about the environmental impact assessment. Now, this is a very, very important subject. For major projects, environmental impact assessment is supposed to be done for 2 or 3 seasons at the same time. But people are in a hurry. So that is why they don't want these things to come up before the NGT. Environment impact assessment is a major science which has been developed globally, and I think we should respect it. We are not against development. NGT is not against development, but it should be sustainable development. The another major criticism is that the money which the NGT imposes as fine very often remains with the Central Pollution Control Board or the State Pollution Control Committee, and without actually causing the remediation. Now, if you give me money and I keep it safely, but I don't spend the money for the environmental upgradation or remediation, then it is useless. So they feel that this is not in order. And I think this is a very valid criticism, because the law lays down that there is something called an environment relief fund, which should be operated by the United India Insurance Company. But instead, even the NGT or anybody gives a lot of money to the CPCB or to the State Pollution Control Board or to certain wings of the government. But that part of it is good. The only thing is that it should be well spent for an environmental cause, which is not happening very often. And the last thing is that often the damage which is caused to the environment has still not become very refined. It has not become very refined. So the assessment of damage, it is criticized. This is a criticism, is often done by guesswork. You know, it is not actually scientifically, you cannot say that this is the damage. Because when you scientifically do it, you find that the damage is less or damage is more. So how did you arrive at a judgment by saying that this is the extent of the damage and this is the monetary value of it? You know, that part of it is sometimes by guesswork. This is what they say. Now, I think I shall close the thing with respect to the NGT on this, but I think our students and teachers would be able to relate much more to some of the important cases, you know, about which you have heard or you have read about, and you know, what are the issues pertaining to it. The first one is, if most people that, you know, in drawing room sessions, whenever people have heard that I am a part of NGT, they ask me whether the you know, Art of Living, Sri Ravi Shankar, whether they paid the 5 crores or not. You know, I told them that this is not a very major case. It is basically relating to the use of the Yamuna floodplains, you know, on the banks of the Yamuna. A couple of years back, I think 2015, he wanted to use the Yamuna floodplains, and he set it up, you know, without taking environmental clearance, and you know, did a lot of compaction, you know, with the help of very heavy equipment. So what happened is that a lot of things which are part of the diversity, you know, got killed in the process. Those of you, you know, who like to eat good fish would have heard of the fish called lotte fish, you know, which in English is called eel. You know, it doesn't grow, it doesn't come from the water. It doesn't come from the land, but it comes from the floodplains. And it is one of the most tastiest fishes, but in common English parlance, they say as slippery as an eel, you know, as slippery as an eel. But like that, there are earthworms, there are so many things, you see. And once the floodplains are compacted, there is a lot of damage, because those floodplains actually are very alluvial soil. You know, it grows excellent vegetables over there without any kind of manure, and so on. So we in the NGT had imposed a fine of rupees 5 crores, which was protested by the members or the advocates representing the art of living. But I remember the protest notwithstanding, NGT put its foot down. Government also, you know, well, was perhaps on the different side. I recall the very important persons from the government who attended that particular conference, though the Honorable President, you know, he excused himself, he recused himself, the President Pranab Mukherjee. He did not attend this just at the nick of time. So this is one. The second major case, I think, on which the NGT spent a lot of time is the one on Ganga cleaning. You know, Ganga is our lifeline in the whole of North India. And right after it emerges from Deoprayag, where the Ganga and the Bhagirathi meet, and thereafter it comes to Hardwar. You know, those of you who have been to Hardwar, you know, would perhaps recall that Lord Dalhousie had a lot to do with the development of Haridwar. You know, even though they were a foreign power and they were not interested in our religion, but the building up that entire, that is actually a canal of Ganga. That is not the original flow of the Ganga river. So that was drying up, and this place was utilized. So Hadki Podi and all these places have been beautifully developed. But after that only you see that the water becomes gradually very dirty. So the NGT was trying, you know, the World Bank has given money, Asian Development has given money. Ganga has been an important subject for a long time with the government. But unfortunately, as the former, chairperson of the National Green Tribunal, Justice Swatatra Kumar, you know, who was a very fiery kind of a person, had stated that, what have you done? He says in one of his orders, he said, not a drop has been cleaned. Ganga has only become dirtier by the years. Now, there is a lot of truth in what he had said. So, even though the Honorable Prime Minister has started the Namami Gange project, the present Honorable Prime Minister has started the Namami Gange project, but unfortunately, you know, you find that there is so much of pollutants coming from Amroha and Bijnor industrial units, which are using the Ganga water and also pushing back all the pollutants into the Ganga, which they are not supposed to do. And the Kanpur tanneries, you know, Kanpur, you know, is a big center for leather and all these. There are a large number of tanneries which use the Ganga water, and they discharge all their pollutants into the Ganga river. So a lot of effort has been made now to remove these people from the banks of the Ganga and to push them inside, where there are proper plants to look after their the sewage and the effluents coming out of the tanneries. But these people are reluctant to go. So NGT started a very interesting concept of called participative adjudication. Now, which is something very interesting. I was a party to all that. So what we used to do is that we used to have conferences and meetings where we used to call the chief secretaries and important functionaries and others who would come and then discuss this whole matter. And we would have the stenographers ready. So once they say that, look, this is the extent of pollution and this is what we can do, says fine, that let it be recorded over here. But next day when the case comes up in the court, the advocate should not say that this was never stated. So that way we recorded some progress in the cleaning of the Ganga. So Ganga was divided into 3 parts, right from Deoprayag onwards to the end of Uttar Pradesh, then from Uttar Pradesh on to portion, the whole of Bihar and a little portion of Jharkhand, and the third one into the West Bengal, falling into the Bay of Bengal. So one by one, these things have been addressed, and a lot of work has been done. In fact, you know, the interesting thing is the authorities were quite clueless about how many drains are carrying pollutants into the Ganga. The question is not of cleaning the Ganga, but you have to clean the drains first. If you clean the source, then the effluents would not fall into the Ganga and make it dirty. So with Mr. Goel, Justice Goel, the present chairperson, a new process has started. It is called the in situ remediation. In situ remediation, so that you, in the process of flowing, you have to use a lot of agents whereby you can start cleaning the Ganga. Otherwise, those of you who are aware of this particular subject, there is so much of contamination going on in the groundwater also. Our groundwater is very contaminated. So if I contaminate the groundwater and you are living close by, you are drinking water from a tube well. So the contaminated water is something which you are drinking. which is extremely dangerous. We found this in the case of pharmaceutical companies in Punjab. We found this in the case of Coca-Cola, where what they did is they took a deep pipe and at a great distance, it was falling. The whole ground was covered. So nobody came to know that it was actually coming out of Coca-Cola plant. But when it was actually discovered and we were able to, find out the details, then the question was of how to fix the compensation, and which we did. Then, I have myself seen, you must have heard of this Panipat in Haryana. The battles of Panipat are very famous, which steered the history of India. Now at Panipat, there are a large number of plants, which are for dyes and chemicals. So what the government has done is they said they have set up STPs, sewage treatment plants, STPs. I found to my horror that the STPs are just not used. They are simply showpieces, something like kept in a drawing room, because they don't want to use the electricity for the STPs. So they simply push all their effluents and all the waste into the ground, having very little regard to the contamination that is taking place. So this, according to me, is a very important case, and I think you should keep following it. I mean, I would request all the students to follow it. Another important case, are you finding it interesting, please? Are you finding it interesting, or I should stop?
Absolutely, sir. Very relevant, but if we can take some interaction also, if you would like to.
Yeah, I would kindly note it down. We'll take interactions in the end. Otherwise, I'll lose my flow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and the next one is with regard to Samir Mehta's case. That is a very interesting case. It relates to 2011, where a ship named MV RAK, R-A-K. It was a ship carrying coal from Indonesia to the port of Dahej in Gujarat. And it was owned by Adani and the industrialist. And so 20 nautical miles away from the coast of Bombay, the ship wrecked and fell down. So letting loose about 60,000 metric tons of coal and 290 tons of fuel, all into the water. So as a result, there was a huge oil spillage, and it spoiled the oil in a very large area. So the fishermen off the coast of Bombay who were going, and a lot of birds were dying, a lot of fish died, fishermen, they lost their livelihood. So it was a big nuisance. So nobody was doing anything. So the Coast Guards, the governmental authority, were asked to do something, and they spent a lot of money in trying to clear to some extent, but not fully. Now, when this case came up before the NGT, I think it was one of the most interesting cases. It is worthy of being made into a movie, according to me. They engaged the best of lawyers, and the insurance companies and underwriters and everybody. They were all there, the best of them, the most well-paid people had come to argue, and then it was found that this was this was a thing registered in Panama and Dubai. And we also found that, everybody had gone bankrupt. There was nobody to pay the compensation. So we must have taken at least 100 hearings of this particular case. And then at the end of it, and the ship was also unseaworthy. Ship was unseaworthy. So therefore, how they gave the clearance for the ship to travel? Because any moment it could have collapsed, So, and if it collapsed, it has collapsed. So therefore, the human mischief or the human cleverness, was passed on to a great environmental damage. So the NGT, fined them 100 crores, 100 crores. And so nobody has gone on appeal against it, but perhaps after that I left the NGT in 2017. Perhaps nobody's paid up that money also so far. So that is one case. The another case, you see, I want to bring to your notice a major case is relating to the period when I was in Meghalaya. So those of you who are from the Northeast might find it interesting. It is called the Lafarge case. The Lafarge is a huge cement manufacturer based in France, and they have branches. It's a multinational. So, before the partition of India, the limestones are found in Meghalaya in the hills, but the cement companies were the cement manufacturing companies were in the area falling in Bangladesh. So those of you who have been to Cherrapunji, I am sure many of you must have been to Cherrapunji, also called Sohra. If you stand there on a clear day, you will notice smoke billowing out at the bottom. Now that is from a factory in Chatak falling in Bangladesh. So with the partition of India, they found that, even though new cement companies started coming in India, Lafarge wanted to take the limestone of Meghalaya and do the cement manufacturing in Bangladesh through an international agreement. While at some point of time, it was 2006, 2007, it was allowed. Eventually, it was taken to the Supreme Court because it was felt that it was violative of the National Forest Policy of 1988. Madam Ganguly had referred to the National Forest Policy. So this was violative of the National Forest Policy of 1988. And a very important person, Harish Salve, was made the amicus curiae. So Harish Salve argued that, look, Meghalaya cannot barter away the raw material of India and make Bangladesh, get the finished products. Because they say that, you should sell finished products. You cannot sell raw materials and thereby your people are the losers. So initially they stopped it. But I was in the Meghalaya government at that point of time, but we fought our way through and we said that Meghalaya people have a right of self-determination. It is the people of Meghalaya who would like to decide what is good for them. And since it is part of the tribal ethos of the people, it was felt that if they have done this agreement, they have done the agreement. So if you find something wrong with it, tell us what is wrong with it. But otherwise, merely selling it to Bangladesh, there is nothing wrong. We can take more profits out of it. That is a different thing. Eventually, the Supreme Court, ban was lifted and the government allowed it. So Lafarge is a very important case. Now, in the NGT also, there are certain pending cases of Lafarge because a new mine was taken and the environmental clearance of it has been questioned. So there is a case in the NGT and there is a case pending in the Supreme Court. It is yet to be finally decided, but I have shared with you what I know. Now, another important case where I was very much a part of and had to write the judgment was relating to Odisha. This we used to call the Mathala case. There was a gentleman called Mr. Mathala who was 78 years old. And he used to come to the court regularly and say that as part of the Golden Quadrilateral, the road from Calcutta to Chennai passing through Odisha had to be widened. So government was putting pressure, and this person who was the contractor, he started the whole work of expansion, but he did not he set up a stone crusher without taking any precautionary measures as per the law. The law says if you set up a stone crusher, there is a lot of stone dust. So you have to take care of the stone dust, because if you breathe stone dust, you are actually breathing the stones inside. It is very dangerous to your pulmonary system. So and meanwhile, while the case was going on, at that stage the work was completed, and the contractor wanted to walk away. We said nothing doing. We looked at it, and it is a very interesting case. We found what was Mathala's complaint. Mathala's complaint was agriculture has been badly disrupted. I could not grow my crops during those 2-3 seasons. And thirdly, he says health of the people was badly disrupted. People suffered adverse health conditions. So when we asked the agriculture department, to give us the records, the agriculture department cooked up certain things and possibly they were managed. So we could not catch them on that. But on grounds on the health side, we found that we were quite right. The respiratory people suffering from chest problems, the respiratory side of it, had increased in number during the particular period when we had the stone crushing going on. So what we did at the end of it is, we said we find them 5 lakhs, the project proponents, we find them 5 lakhs and we gave it to the collector of that particular district to have 5 additional rooms in the local hospital. And we requested the government of Odisha to send in pulmonary experts, chest experts more regularly. And we also compensated Mathala for the 74 trips. He had made 74 trips to Delhi, going and coming put together. You divide it by 2. So there were total 74 journeys. So we calculated that by AC 3-tier coming from Bhubaneswar, how much does it cost? And we gave it to him. So I thought it was a good judgment. But after some time, he came back and told the NGT that I want a review petition. So what is the review? He said that this is hardly anything. You should pay me much more. So which the court did not entertain. But I thought it was a very landmark case, because even the small man was recognized. He did not have an advocate. He was fighting on his own. Now, if we come to close at home, West Bengal, I will conclude in about 5 minutes or so. In Shantiniketan, you have the Posh Mela every year, and many of you may have visited and have enjoyed it also. But in the recent past, the NGT had stated that you have to set up a solid waste and a sewage treatment plant over there. So this is the direction. So these people, either the Poroshobha or the Bazaar committee did not have enough money to do it. So they said we will not have the Posh Mela. Now, what is the history of Posh Mela? It was started during Rabindranath Tagore Nobel Laureate's time, and to sell village handicrafts, from Sriniketan. And so shops were allowed to be opened. So for about 110 years, this was held for about 4 days only. But in the recent past, for the last 10 years or so, the businessmen have become so greedy, so acquisitive, that beyond the 4 days, they want to extend it by another 10 to 12 days. And they were using diesel generator sets. And instead of selling only village handicrafts from Sriniketan and other things, now they are selling things like tractors, water purifiers, and everything under the sun. So, people complain, and eventually NGT, after listening to them and going into all aspects of it, have said that, no, you can't do it. This is not the way, until and unless you set up, solid waste and sewage treatment plants, which they can't. So that is why This year it has been stopped. The other illustration is about the West Bengal firecrackers case. During Kali Puja, Diwali, there's a lot of noise pollution. And for some time, West Bengal was in the forefront. They had controlled the firecrackers pollution significantly in the till around 2009, 10, and things like that. Until then, it was all right, but the major manufacturers of firecrackers come from Shivakashi in Kerala. So they are manufacturing in such a manner so as to have economy of scale, where for the rest of the country, the norm is that up to 125 decibels it is allowed. Whereas in West Bengal, they had said it should be brought down to 90 decibels. So the Firecrackers Association and those people fought tooth and nail, and the NGT said that, okay, they said, let the West Bengal Pollution Control Board, which had set it at 90 decibels, you have a scientific study and find out, what is the difference between 125 decibels in the rest of the country and 90 decibels only in West Bengal. And if you come with a reasonably good convincing argument, we will agree. Unfortunately, the government of West Bengal, through the West Bengal Pollution Control Board, reiterated the same thing. They did not have a proper scientific study. So as a result, that case fell through. And unfortunately, it is still 125 decibels. So as and when the Pollution Control Board of the state is able to do something proper, perhaps, the sound can be controlled. Then another illustration of sound control, sound management is, there was a case of a Punjabi dhaba in Noida. These fellows, used to have very loud music, but within 100 yards, there was a hospital. So somebody complained. And as you know, the requirement is in front of hospitals, it has to be not exceeding 55 decibels during daytime and 40 decibels during night. So when we pointed out this thing, the dhaba people were very belligerent. They did not agree. So we closed down the dhaba. Then after about a couple of months, they came and said that we will control the sound. We will do. So once the Pollution Control Board said that they have set up things properly, then we reopened it. And so I think I have exceeded my time. Otherwise, I had one or two interesting cases. One was the rat hole mining in Meghalaya.
That will come in our discussion.
Okay, so I'll leave it. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful, elaborative view into the role of NGT. I think it has been really challenging and gratifying also when you have had some success in some cases. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yes, sir. So it was wonderful, and there are few interactions. Before that, we would like to know, what is the framework of NGT? I mean, how is NGT formed?
NGT has a chairperson who is a Supreme Court retired judge or a Chief Justice of a High Court. So far, we have had retired judges from the Supreme Court only. Justice Panta, then Justice Swatantra Kumar, and Justice Goel. Then it has judicial members who are all retired judges from the High Court, and it has expert members, so who are either professors of any environmental science, either fisheries or things like that. It could be engineers who deal with environmental pollution, or so far I have been the only IAS officer because I had about 12 years of experience dealing with environment, So, but anyway, I mean, I would rather be very humble because I sat with a galaxy of important people. So therefore, minimum requirement is 21. Today, NGT has very few members, but I believe the government is now finally coming forward. You know, there is a lot of pressure on the government to include more members. So once that comes, there are 4 benches of the NGT. Apart from the principal bench, there is one at Kolkata, one at Gopal, one at Pune, and one at Chennai. So this is how it is.
Sir,
Thanks
I
so
have
much.
a question. Vishwarupa, can I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Sir, I have a question. That when does a case go to NGT? Does it first reach the benches and then goes to the NGT, or it directly goes to NGT?
No, ma'am, the benches are a part of NGT.
Okay.
There is no separation between the Calcutta bench and the principal bench. You can go to any bench or you can go to Delhi. Basically, you have to register a dispute. You know, supposing you are an industrialist, ma'am, or let us say Vishwarupa, Dr. Ghosh is an industrialist. She is causing some pollution and you are protesting, you know, then that becomes a dispute. So you have to, there is a format and 1,000 rupees has to be paid. And as per that format, you can online, you can go, or you can engage an advocate, you can go yourself and file a petition before the NGT under a suitable section of law. Then it will come up before the NGT within a month or so, or 15 days. It could be immediate also if it is urgent. It could come up the next day if it is urgent. Okay? And thereafter it goes on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your question, ma'am. Principal, ma'am. One of our participants, Avinash, has asked, where is the environment court? What are the procedures to know about it? One of our young participants.
Well, Avinash, I think it's a very good question. These are the environmental courts. Now today, National Green Tribunal are the environmental courts in India. Okay. But over and above that, the high courts also take up environmental cases. There is no ban on them. It is expected that they would hand over these cases to the NGT. But some high court judges feel that they should do it themselves. And the Supreme Court also deals with environmental cases. That is the apex body. And there have been some judges of the Supreme Court who have been extremely proactive about environmental matters. So this is the entire, framework of environmental courts in India. The National Green Tribunal, some high courts if they take an interest, and the Supreme Court.
Thank you so much, sir. You had already covered a part of it, but there is a question from Dr. Shapun Mondal. He's asking what is the present status of the Ganga project? Ganga Clean Ganga Action Plan. What is the present status?
Yeah, there is a Namami Ganga project under the government, and it is also funded by international agencies because it is a very important project. It deals with the livelihoods of so many people. But until and unless the Ganga becomes clean, it will not remain Pavitra Ganga, it will only become Maily Ganga. So very difficult to say what exactly is the progress. Allow me to put it like this, ma'am, that when I was, with the Planning Commission as a consultant, Dr. Kasturi Rangan, with whom I used to work, the missile man, he had asked a question, and where it was found that going by the present rate, how long would it take to clean the Ganga? And it was found that it would take as much as 83 years, where I don't know whether your grandchildren would be alive also by that time. So that is a very sad spectacle. We have made our Ganga so dirty that it would take 83 years to clean. But I am talking of the time 2010, 2011, when I was there. Since then, I believe progress has been made. And if we are able to, that in situ remediation that is being practiced now, and the kind of active interest which the NGT is taking, and if the state governments also are in sync, then perhaps a lot can be done. Dr. Mrs. Gangopadhyay had said the role of the government, but unfortunately, I think, I would like to respond by saying it is not merely the role of the government. Everybody, she also said, I think role of the people is very important. Role of the community is very important. If we all take care of this, then it would become much better. Now, I will like to share with you a very grim illustration. I was told that, in the rural areas, what happens is when in the poor people's families, when anybody dies, what happens is they don't have sufficient money also. So they take the dead bodies on a bicycle, crossing it on the carrier, take it on the banks of the Ganga, put one log or something like that, because firewood is very expensive. And thereafter, when it is half burned, they throw it into the Ganga. But all the efforts which are going on for setting up electric crematorium, this, that, etc., are in vain. So a lot of change of mindset has to be there from the people's side, and the community must support such causes. Only then can Ganga be cleaned.
Absolutely, sir. Our principal, ma'am, Professor Papia Chakravarti, also had said the same thing, and people's participation has to be the most important thing here. We have a question from Dr. Ratul Vaishya of Delhi University. He has complimented you, sir. Excellent talk on the environmental issues and role of NGT. Can you comment on the Baghjan oil field explosion? What went wrong and who is responsible? The Baghjan oil explosion in Assam. Could you kindly comment on that?
Well, my observation, thank you very much, Doctor. So for your compliments, and I can only say with respect to Baghjan what I have followed from the media, and it is a very unfortunate thing. It is somewhere very close to Dibru Saikwa National Park in Dibrugarh near Tinsukia, and this oil flaring has been there in Assam at a couple of places for a long time, and we have not been able to control it. Now, this particular flaring has caused a lot of damage. Some human beings are lost, one driver and somebody else from the fire side. And they say, the Oil India Duliajan people say that they had outsourced this particular thing to some Singapore company, and who have not been able to control it appropriately. But now I think after a long time, perhaps something has been done in the recent past. Last few days ago, I was told that it has improved a little bit. But incidentally, I inquired from somebody from a tea garden. They said that Dibru Saikwa perhaps will not be so adversely affected. This is my personal information which I collected, but I think it's a very tragic thing that it has happened. And I think we have to learn a lot of lessons from this particular flaring.
Thank you, sir. One question from one of the students, Oindrila Ganguly. She is asking, sir, waste disposal problems are arising in my area due to encroachment of the disposal land. How to draw attention of the authorities?
Well, I think it's you're on the right tracks,
Oindrila.
Oindrila. So, but first and foremost, you have to get in touch with your local authorities. It could be your subdivisional officer or the BDO, as the case may be, or if you can go to anybody from the pollution control department, and write a petition. Don't just speak, write a petition and send a petition online to the West Bengal Pollution Control Board. This is happening at a lot of places not only in your neighborhood, because the the place for garbage disposal is becoming smaller and smaller. A, the garbage is not lifted. B, there is an encroachment on that land. So all over the country, there is so much of encroachment that it has become unfortunate, that in West Bengal, I think there are so many issues which are not being addressed. I don't know. I think this is a fit case where you can go to, as I said, the pollution control board or the local BDO. And if you think the BDO is not doing enough, send it to the National Green Tribunal. They will take cognizance of it.
Thank you so much, sir. Even though we are a little behind schedule, I'll take a question here from Priyankudhar, Dr. Priyankudhar. Is there any future initiative to be taken by NGT during the lockdown experience of environmental rejuvenation? I mean, that's a very interesting aspect. Would NGT be looking at it?
Well, I think with the lockdown, from an environmental point of view, things are better, truthfully speaking. We are able to, at least in Delhi, we could never see the clear blue skies. Now we can see it. There is less pollution, less vehicles on the roads all over the country. Then Jamuna has become much cleaner. Yamuna River has become much cleaner because, industries are not working. They are not dropping surreptitiously effluents into the river. So, but they are trying to, from an NGT's perspective, they are doing online a lot of adjudication. I think it is very difficult to do online adjudication, it's not so easy. But still they are trying a lot of cases. If you read in the newspapers, NGT is going on fighting its own battles, say for instance, the Shantiniketan thing is very recent. And so many cases are coming up all over the country. And NGT is trying its best. But, in a lockdown situation, which is the new normal, this is only so much that you can do. You can't do more than this.
Thank you so much, sir. The last question, and briefly we will just touch it. What was your experience about the rat hole mining and NGT's approach to it in Meghalaya when you were the Chief Secretary of Meghalaya? So briefly, could you tell us?
Yeah, briefly, I was, the case didn't come up when I was the Chief Secretary. Case came up much later when I was with the NGT. So, but I knew that this is a very bad practice because it is an unscientific, rat hole mining is an unscientific practice of mining where they use children because big people cannot enter these small cavities. It is about maximum 3 to 4 feet, of the size. So the small children, they enter that area and keep on extracting the limestones from there. So, extracting the coal from there. So coal is a very important resource. They say that Meghalaya itself has about 640 million tons of coal, as reserves. So unfortunately, the state has no policy. I was pushing very hard for a policy. So in 2012, state came out with a policy on rat hole mining. At that time, I was with the Government of India and the Planning Commission. The unfortunate thing that there is a lack of political will. There is a lot of collusion between the miners, and the political people. There are a lot of Benami mines, with these people. And so we had brought in the Coal India Limited, who wanted to take it up. And we said that, you experiment with it for a few years, 5 to 10 years, and they will have better health facilities for the miners, better scientific things and things like that. But there was a lot of opposition to it, Nobody wanted to do it. So, in 2014, NGT took up this case and very recently, you must have read about the deaths which took place in Meghalaya in the Garo Hills, where as a result of the mine collapsing, because the coal seams are very thin, and the water turns acidic and the BOD levels are very high. So when it was stopped by the NGT, now there was a lot of mischief going on, in the sense they kept on saying that there is a lot of coal which is pre-mined, mined in advance. So they said, allow us to transport it. Now NGT said that if you keep the coal over there, and there is 6 months, it rains in Meghalaya, more than 6 months. So they said that it would lead to greater pollution. So they said, okay, we will allow you to transport the coal which is already mined. But what they kept on doing is they would remove that coal, and at night they would bring more coal, mine more coal, and keep it over there. So that became this kind of a mischief, continued for a couple of years. It is a very difficult thing, because Meghalaya is a poor state, people are poor. There is a lot of exploitation of the labor, and and in the rat hole mining, it is the children of Nepal and the children of Bangladesh who are there. There are public interest groups which are at play, but government thinks differently, and finally Supreme Court, it went out of the hands of the NGT. They approached the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has said that you can take the pre-mined coal. Now there was NGT had appointed a committee under Justice Kakati of Guwahati High Court. Ultimately, Justice Kakati also put his hands up. He has resigned in protest. In protest, I am adding within parentheses, he has resigned. So this is the situation of the rat hole mining.
Absolutely.
Unless there is a political will, you can't do anything in India.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for such great interaction. And I'm sure after Sir Ranjan Chatterjee's talk, social scientists, physical scientists, biological scientists, all of us can see the scope of the changes that we can make in biodiversity conservation. And the Mathala case that Sir talked about, anyone and everyone can make a change in biodiversity conservation. You don't need a special degree to be a conservationist. So with that, we thank you, sir, once more for being with us and sharing your lifelong experiences, giving us a new window through NGT to fight for environmental causes. With that, I will ask you to stay with us if possible, and we'll move on to the next technical session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We're moving on to the next technical session, session 2. And our speaker for today in the technical session 2 is Professor Shanti Swarup Sharma from Sikkim University. I ask our faculty member, Dr. Shapun Mondal, to kindly introduce her to our audience. Dr. Mondal.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. It's a great pleasure for me to get a chance to introduce Dr. Shanti Swarup Sharma. Today, he will enlighten us on feed physiological aspects of some medicinal plants from Western Himalaya, implication for cultivation and conservation also. Dr. Shanti Swarup Sharma is now the head and professor, Department of Botany, School of Life Sciences, Sikkim University, Sikkim. Dr. Sharma has obtained MSc, MPhil, and PhD also from Meerut University, Meerut. His specialization is on plant physiology and biochemistry. His research interest on molecular physiology of abiotic stress. He was also interested on ecophysiology on high altitude medicinal plants. Now, I will inform the academic position held by Dr. Sharma. He was the assistant professor in the Department of Botany, Nehu, Shillong. He was present a professor, Department of Bioscience, Himachal Pradesh University, Shimla. He was also a professor of Department of Botany, School of Life Science, Sikkim University. He has also worked on many international collaboration and awarded different fellowships. I can mention just like this: Marie Curie postdoctoral fellowship by European Commission, INSA DFJ fellowship in 2004, 2012, and 2019 from University of Belfort, Germany, DST Overseas Associateship 2007 from Germany, JSPS Invitation Fellowship 2009 from Japan. He has completed several research projects, including DST DAAD and DST JSPS. He has published more than 4300 papers in high impact factor journal. So, sir, we are eagerly waiting to hear you. So please, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you, Dr. Mandal. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mandal, for your kind words. A small correction. So nobody can publish 4,300 papers. So yeah, that is the citations actually.
Wonderful. Like we were looking at it and we were thinking amazing amount of citations you have.
Okay, no, that's
wonderful papers, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You asked me to send some details, so I sent it. Okay. So thank you very much. And it was a wonderful talk by Chatterjee Sahab because he has first-hand experience with so many cases, and it was very informative. I am educated with this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. I have also been in Shillong, so we have some common connection. So Dr. Vishwarupa Ghosh, so she was a student there. I taught there for some time. Okay, so I will be, actually, I do work these days on how plants, they do tolerate toxicants, particularly heavy metals, arsenic, and other things. So basic work we do carry out so that we can get insight how the organisms, they can handle the toxicants, and that can lead to some wayouts to find solutions. But since the topic of this webinar is related to conservation, biodiversity conservation, so I thought that I will share some of our work that we carried out in Himachal Pradesh about high altitude medicinal plants. So I will be sharing with you the role of seed physiological aspects in conservation and cultivation of medicinal plants. Can I please have my slides? What do I have to do? I have to share my screen?
No, yes, I'll request the co-host.
Okay, so this is...
Dr. Shuchishmita Chakraborty, could you kindly share your slide? It will be safer that way.
No, I'm...
Professor Sharma, would you like to share yourself or you want me to share your slide?
How do you...
okay, I'll share the slide for you then, and you can give the call.
That will be fine if that works better.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Fine.
All right.
So you received this file that I sent?
Yes.
Okay.
So here it is. Can you see the file?
Yes. So can I explain the
full screen?
Okay, I'll go to full screen mode.
Slideshow, can you...
yeah, this I've done.
Okay. Yes, I think it's quite fine. So
while... and sir, sorry to interrupt you. When you want to change the slide, you just tell me next.
Okay. Thank you so much for this arrangement. I hope it will work well. So when I prepared this, so I kept in mind the UG and PG students of your college. And so it is seed physiological aspects of some medicinal plants from Western Himalaya and how these aspects are important for cultivation and conservation of these plants. So next, please. Next slide. The last one. Okay, so we all understand the importance of plants. They are the primary producers, and our dependence upon plants is complete for diverse purposes. So food, shelter, medicine, everything. And so our country has a very strong plant biodiversity. So about 45,000 plant species, out of which 18,000 are flowering plants. So endemic species are close to 5,000. Now this endemism, so that is an indicator of biodiversity richness of a country. So we do very well on this count. And more than 3,000 species, so they do have documented advantage of medicinal plants. Not only this, so the country has 4 biodiversity hotspots, as you know, the Western Ghats, the Himalayas, the Indo-Burma region, so that also includes some parts of Northeast India, and Sundaland. So this includes the Nicobar group of islands. So biodiversity hotspots, so that tells about the biodiversity richness of the country, different parts of the country. Next, please. So Indian Himalayan region, so this is very special. So this encompasses several states, starting from Kashmir to Arunachal Pradesh, and it's a hotspot of biodiversity. It has been a steady source of medicine for millions of people in the country and elsewhere. And the plants in Himalayas, they're used not only for food, fodder, fuel, timber, etc. They're important for medicine and they're important for various other purposes. Okay, so once again, so 8,000 species in IHR, and medicinally important plant species are 1,748, out of which the herbs dominate. So more than 1,000 herb species that are medicinal. So shrubs and trees, so 300 each plus. So they're also important. I will be taking you to this region, Trans-Himalayan region, Ladakh, and Lahore and Spiti, particularly in Himachal Pradesh. So this area. So this has 337 species of medicinal plants and strong endemism. So 62 endemic plants in this region. So next, ma'am. Next, please. Okay, so Himachal Pradesh. So it is. It has a very strong background. It has a very strong connection with Ayurveda, with medicinal plants and all. It's a rich repository of medicinal plants. 3,000 plant species and more than 300. They are medicinal plants. And 40 plant products, they are extracted from forest produce in the state. You will be interested in knowing that Ayurveda, the ancient science of medicine, it is believed to have its origin in Himachal Pradesh. So its development. Then some great scholars of Ayurveda, so they have connection with Himachal Pradesh. So Punar Vasu Atreya, so is believed to have lived in Chandrabhaga river catchment in Lahore and Spiti. So in Lahore and Spiti, so there are 2 rivers, Chandra and Bhaga. So they are the lifeline of this special part of Himachal Pradesh. Then Nagarjuna, so you know that he has been a scholar in medicinal chemistry. So he worked in Kangra district, Jwalamukhi particularly, and he eventually shifted his research activities to Trilokinath, once again in Lahore and Spiti. So plants in Himachal Pradesh, they are used in Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, and homeopathy. So it has a strong connection with, Himachal Pradesh has a strong connection with medicinal plants. Yes, ma'am, next please. Next please. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes,
Please.
yes.
So should I skip this slide?
Okay. So actually, in recent years, what has happened, that there has been a resurgence of interest in medicinal herbs all over the globe. So why? Because they do have lesser side effects. They do have a better compatibility with the human metabolism, and they're cheaper than modern medicines. And in some areas, they are the only option. They are the only option for curing the diseases, because every part is not lucky to have the modern medicine. So because of this, what has happened, that there's a tremendous increase in demand for medicinal plants all over the globe. So India is the second largest producer of medicinal plants and products. So this has an immense potential in the global market because of this reason. So behind China. So this is the second largest producer of medicinal plants. Next, ma'am. Next, please. Okay, so this increasing demand, where does it come from? So this is basically coming from the connection from the wild. And that is the problem. Because in the wild, so they grow very slow. And when they're growing very slow, so regeneration is very slow, exploitation exceeds. So you can imagine the consequences. So exploitation rates, they exceed the natural regeneration, and that has led to drastic loss of medicinal plant wealth in all parts of the country. So collection of medicinal plants from the wild is by unskilled workers. There are additional factors. So habitat loss, so landslides, natural as well as anthropogenic. So construction activities, road widening, and many different activities. So they're responsible for the loss of medicinal plant wealth. In Himachal Pradesh, because of this, so many plants, they have become threatened at different levels of threat. So different levels of threat means that critically endangered medicinal plants that well in Himachal Pradesh. Critically endangered means that are towards the extinction. So 23 plant species, they are endangered already, and 31, so they are also vulnerable. So if we do not take measures with appropriate interventions, so we are going to lose them fast. So next, ma'am. Next slide, please. Okay, so what should be done? So what's the need of the hour? Need of the hour is to develop conservation strategies. And these conservation strategies, so they have to be cost effective and they have to be realistic. I think we cannot advise, we cannot suggest anything. So they have to be cost effective, they have to be realistic. So that, so qualitative and quantitative restoration can take place of the this. So you understand that we often talk about in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. But in situ conservation, this may be insufficient because this may not be sufficient to meet the increasing demand for medicinal herbs. So what should be done? So one way out is that commercial cultivation should be encouraged. So they should be encouraged. And what will happen due to this? That pressure on the wild population, so that will decrease, that will decline. So cultivation, if we have to encourage the cultivation, then we have to think about that how the plants are propagated. So all students of botany, so we all understand that there are three main means of plant propagation. So we can propagate plants through seeds. We can propagate plants through vegetative propagules in some cases. And we can grow them in tissue culture, so micro propagation. So if we have to grow the plants in tissue culture, then certain infrastructure of laboratory is required. So we can't recommend this for this conservation purposes. So out of these three means, so which is the most effective and which is the most realistic? The seed-based one. Because nature has provided us with seeds. So we must examine the seeds, that how seeds they can be used for propagation of the medicinal plants and for cultivation and for conservation, both the purposes. So next.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Yes.
Sir?
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Yes, sir. Could you just move a little away from the system? There is a sound interruption. Can we check your voice if you move a little away from your system and speak?
So I should come close to the system?
No, a little away from it.
Is this okay?
Yes, sir. This is okay. Thank you, sir.
Is it better?
Yes, sir. It's better. There was some, I think, fixation problem. It was shaking. The voice was shaking. This is better.
Okay, so I can once helps.
It's fine, sir. Continue, sir. Continue.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir. It's okay.
No, because even I cannot hear you properly.
Okay. No, we can hear.
So earlier it was not so.
We can hear you properly. Kindly continue.
Okay, so initially it was not so.
No, it was good. In between, there were a few interruptions. It's fine now.
No, does it make sense? Is it okay? Am I audible?
Absolutely audible, sir. Please go on.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so if we have to use the seeds for propagation of plants, then in case of the wild plants, including the medicinal plants, so there are two conditions which do hamper the propagation. So one is the seed dormancy, and second is erratic seed germination behavior. So dormancy, you know that, yes, sir. Okay, Chatterjee Sahab is saying something?
No, sir. No, sir. You are muted, Dr. Mr. Ranjan Chatterjee. You are muted.
Yeah, Dr. Ghosh, I cannot hear you properly. There is some problem in.
Professor Sharma. Professor Sharma, can you hear me? Professor Sharma?
Yes, but there is.
Yes. You can hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can. But can
Your
you hear
video.
me?
Yeah, you please switch off your video and then you.
Okay. Yes,
Hello?
I switched off my video.
Yes, it is fine now.
Okay. Does it work
Right.
better?
You can continue now.
Okay, it works better.
Yes, it is sounding better. Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry because this technology-based presentation, so they can have this kind of
Yes.
interruptions.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so if we have to.
I would just like to inform our viewers also, sir is streaming from Sikkim where there are some reception problems. So kindly bear with us. And sir, kindly go on. It's coming clear now.
Okay, so yes, in fact, I'm in Gangtok and it is dark already outside, raining and dark. So okay, so actually, so seed-based propagation. So this faces so two hindrances. One, seed dormancy. So seeds are dormant, and seeds they often exhibit erratic germination behavior. So dormancy. So we know that seeds are viable, but seeds they cannot germinate when they are subjected to favorable germination conditions. So this state is known as seed dormancy. Okay, and second is erratic germination. Erratic germination means that seeds, they do not germinate synchronously, like in case of crop plants. You see, farmers, so we grow wheat, we grow rice. So what happens in the field? All seeds, they will germinate simultaneously, synchronously, so that they can grow simultaneously and they can be harvested simultaneously. But in case of wild plants, including medicinal plants, this doesn't happen. So seeds, they germinate in batches. So 20% seeds, they will germinate this week. Another 20% seeds, they might germinate after 2 months. Now, these conditions, nature has devised them. Nature has devised them as survival strategies. Because you see, if seeds are not dormant, so in the mountains, most of the medicinal plants, so they are producing the fruits in September and October. So seeds, they become available in October. So if seeds, they will germinate in October, then young fragile seedlings, they can perish in the snow in December and January. They can't withstand the strong extreme temperature conditions. So nature has made them dormant so that they can pass the harsh winters, and seed germination will take place in spring. So seedlings, they will be sturdier enough to withstand the environmental adversities, and they can survive. The same thing is with erratic seed germination, because if all seeds germinate in the forest synchronously, then what will happen? If some harsh circumstances they prevail, they do come, then all of them, they will perish. But if they are growing in batches, then what will happen? That if first batch does not survive, second batch will survive. Second batch does not survive, so the third batch will survive. So survival can be ensured through these mechanisms. So from nature's perspective, so these seed dormancy and erratic germination, so they are all right. But from cultivation point of view, so they are a hindrance, they are a disadvantage. We cannot ask a farmer to grow medicinal plants which will not germinate, or if they germinate, they will not germinate synchronously. So what is required is that the dormancy has to be removed, germination has to be improved, and germination has to be such that all seeds, they germinate simultaneously, so that farmers, they can harvest the plants simultaneously. Okay, so students of botany, they know that technically speaking, there are many different types of dormancy: physiological dormancy, morphological dormancy, morphophysiological dormancy, physical dormancy, chemical dormancy, etc. So not going into details of them, so we can talk about some simple terms. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello.
Yeah, I've shared,
Hello.
sir. Hello, I've shared, sir. I've just changed the slide. It will take some time for you.
Okay. Am I audible? I'm not sure.
You are perfectly audible, sir. Please continue.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, because one cannot make out how it is going actually. Okay. So the common reasons for seed dormancy and the common means of dormancy alleviation. So seeds, they can have hard seed coat. And hard syncope means that they cannot imbibe water or they cannot exchange gases for respiration, etc. Second very common reason is that embryo remains immature and this needs sun after ripening, after harvesting, so that this becomes mature and seeds they can germinate. Then many seeds, they do have chemical inhibitors. So chemical inhibitors of different categories. So these chemical inhibitors, they do not allow the seeds to germinate. So phenolic compounds, and everybody understands the role of abscisic acid. So to the young students of UG and PG, can you make out why the seeds, say for example, when they are present in a tomato fruit, why they do not germinate while they are within the fruits? Have you imagined this? Because this germination has to be stopped. They should not be allowed when they are present in the fruits. And abscisic acid plays a very important role in this. Abscisic acid so keeps the germination inhibited. So you know this Arabidopsis thaliana, the model plant system. In Arabidopsis thaliana, so mutants they can be easily generated, and so some mutants they have been produced in Arabidopsis thaliana, which cannot synthesize abscisic acid. And you will be surprised to know that in these mutants, vivipary occurs. Vivipary occurs means that seeds they can germinate while they are still attached to the fruit. That is the silically. You see, so this proves that abscisic acid is important for this. You also know from mangrove plants. So in mangroves also, so vivipary occurs. So there is a lack of abscisic acid. So seeds, they have to be designed, so they have to be regulated in a need-based manner. So commonly applied physicochemical and hormonal interventions to remove dormancy. So they are like this. So one can treat the seeds with acid. One can scarify them mechanically. So if seed coat is hard, then seed coat can be softened. And then, so water can be imbibed and germination will take place. Then seeds, they can be simply subjected to low temperatures. So chilling. So this chilling is very, very important in many medicinal plants. And this chilling promotes the synthesis of gibberellic acid in the seeds. You know that gibberellic acid has a very important role in germination of the seeds. Then some other physical chemical effectors are potassium nitrite, simply azides. So what do? So there is one normal respiration for energy generation. But when this has to be supplemented, then so this alternate respirations that can be switched on with this kind of treatments. Then seeds, they can be subjected to hot and cold water leaching. So what will happen? That the chemical inhibitors, they will come out of the seeds. And once the concentration of these inhibitors, so that is reduced. So what will happen? That seeds, they will germinate. Now in recent years, so this is a very important effector, nitric oxide. So many of you must be familiar with this. So sodium nitroprusside is used as a donor of nitric oxide. It's a signaling molecule. It regulates many physiological processes, including seed germination. And in recent years, it has been found to be effective in improvement of germination of many plants. And of course, so phytohormones, they are important. So gibberellic acid is most important, but carnitine and even auxins, they can be applied. Yes, next slide, please, ma'am. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have studied the seed germination behavior of many high altitude medicinal plant species of Himachal Pradesh. So Lahore and Spiti and Kinnaur, so 2 areas. So today I'll be sharing with you information with the 4 or 5 examples. So you can get an idea that how these effectors, so they use in alleviation of dormancy and in improvement of seed germination. But before that, I would introduce you to this special region, Lahore and Spiti. So next slide, please. So here is Himachal Pradesh, and in Himachal Pradesh, so this is the district of Lahore and Spiti. So it is a part of cold desert zone of Himachal Pradesh. So cold desert, very low temperature, and desert, scarcity of water. So this is very, very special. You can see this is borders with Kashmir and with China on the other side. And so Spiti is very harsh. So to get here, I must tell you, because we have been going there for collection of the seeds. So yes, last slide, please. Last slide, please. Yes. So to get to Lahore and Spiti, I was in Himachal Pradesh University, Shimla. So it used to take 2 days. So from Shimla, we would go to Manali on day 1. We would stay overnight in Manali. And next morning, we'll go to Lahore Valley. So to reach Lahore Valley, so one has to cross Rohtang Pass. So Rohtang Pass altitude is 13,300 feet. And for more than 6 months, it is under snow. So you can imagine that Lahore is cut off from the rest of the country for more than 6 months in a year. So the students from Lahore and Shimla, so they used to go home after 6 months because there was no way out. Then a very special feature about this area, Lahore and Spiti, is that there's a rain shadow. Rain shadow means that very little rain. Why? Because clouds, they cannot cross Rohtang Pass, 13,000 feet. So they are hampered by Rohtang Pass. They cannot cross Rohtang Pass, and therefore there is very little rain in Lahore and Spiti. So very, very little rain. So it snows directly in the winters. Then conditions are very harsh. Conditions are very harsh means that extreme temperatures. So in some parts, the temperature can be minus 30. And in some parts, during summers, temperature can be plus 30. So that is the range of temperature in this. So soil fertility is very low. And under these circumstances, so plants, they are growing. So some medicinal plants are growing. And, so the medicinal plants which are growing in these areas, they are endowed with very special secondary metabolites. They do produce very special secondary metabolites because of the harsh conditions. In response to the adverse circumstances in which they are growing, so they do produce this kind of substances. You see, all students of botany, they can make out that normally what happens that if everything is available in plenty to the plants, so what will plants do? Plants will photosynthesize. Plants will photosynthesize means that they will gain carbon. And so from the soil, so they will take other nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. And they will synthesize whatever they like to do. But under harsh circumstances, I'm giving you just one example. Say, for example, there is no nitrogen in the soil. There is no nitrogen in the soil, but there is sufficient light. So what will happen? That plants, they will photosynthesize. They will photosynthesize means that there will be carbon gain. But soil is deficient in nitrogen. There is no nitrogen. So without nitrogen, what will they do with carbon? Without nitrogen, they cannot produce proteins. They cannot produce nucleic acids. They cannot produce many nitrogenous substances which are very important. But yet, they do have surplus carbon. So under such circumstances, they will produce the molecules which need carbon and not nitrogen. I will give you one example. You know anthocyanins. Anthocyanins are pigments. Anthocyanins are pigments. And anthocyanins, they do have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in their structure. They do not have nitrogen in their structure. So under these harsh circumstances, when they do have carbon, but they do not have nitrogen, for example, so hypothetically, so they will synthesize anthocyanins. So in the same manner, so they do synthesize very, very secondary metabolites. So my young friends in your college, so they would understand that why do we call them secondary metabolites? They are not secondary in importance. We have to always remember, whenever we mention the term secondary metabolites, we have to remember that they are never secondary in importance. They are secondary only in synthesis. Because primary metabolites are synthesized first. Okay, I have a message that voice is not clear. Hello.
Yes, sir. Partly, mostly it is clear. Sometimes it's not clear.
Okay, so what can I do? Internal microphone.
Please continue, sir. Let's see. Continue. We'll stop slide sharing after some time. Host, could you talk to sir?
Yeah. Hello. Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Not clearly. Not clearly, actually.
Okay. I think a little while ago. Can you shift a little backwards? I think then your voice comes clear. Yeah, can you speak?
No, is it better?
Yeah, hello? Hello?
Is it better? Dr. Ghosh, is it better?
Your voice is breaking. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, it is right. It is okay now. It's all right now.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it is okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm very sorry actually.
No issues, sir. No issues. Kindly continue. In case we see further there are issues, then we will stop slideshow and you can continue, sir. Is that okay, sir?
So I will call somebody, I think. Speaker, just a moment.
It could be a reception problem, sir. It may not be a hardware problem.
Hello, does it work?
It works. And are you a little away from the one, I mean, a few fingers away from the system?
No, is it so right from the beginning or it worsened?
No, not from the beginning, sir. In between.
Okay.
In between.
I'm in the same place.
Okay, sir. Just stay a little away from the system. I think it will be better. There's a away, yes. There is echoing effect, so a little away from the system will help us.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Continue, sir. We will let you know in case we need to stop slideshow. We'll let you know.
No, because again I cannot hear you clearly.
Yes, there is reception problem.
Yes, there is some
Continue,
problem.
sir. Continue, sir.
Okay, so I was I was talking about the secondary metabolites because under these harsh conditions, so plants they do produce these special chemicals, special molecules, secondary metabolites, and we have to keep in mind that secondary metabolites they are secondary in synthesis; they are never secondary in importance. Okay, so I get the message that it is much clear. Okay, so students, they have to remember that they are secondary only in synthesis, not in importance. Can you imagine chlorophyll is a secondary metabolite? Had it been so chlorophyll would have been useless. So then when we say secondary to some entity, so it looks some kind of derogatory. Okay, so always please remember that secondary metabolites like chlorophylls, like auxins, they are all secondary metabolites. And these secondary metabolites, they do have strong antioxidant properties. And because of these special properties, so medicinal properties, they do come. In fact, about food also, it is that brighter, the better. So brighter food is better. Why? Because brighter means that it will have a lot of pigments, anthocyanins, beta-cyanins, carotenes, and all of them are antioxidants. Yes, next please. Next, please. Okay, so this is exactly the area, Barton Valley, so where we worked on these plants. So next, please. Next. Next, please. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, so we have some glimpses of Barton Valley. So so we worked on more than 25 plant species. So what do we do? We study viability status, germination behavior, dormancy status, elevation of dormancy by various physicochemical hormonal treatments. We detect chemical inhibitors, and we do carry out some metabolic studies to examine so why they are dormant and what can be done. Next, please. Next. Okay, so I'll give you some examples. So this plant is very special, photo, film, etc. I hope many of you have heard about it, Dr. Ghosh particularly. So it's a member of Biodiversity. Common English name is Himalayan mayap. In Hindi, this is known as Bon Hooghly. And it's an endangered plant because of many reasons. So perennial herb. It is found in the elevations up to 4,000. And why is this important? So this is important because it produces. So last slide is on. Okay, this is important for the production of
Professor Sharma, sorry to interrupt you,
yes.
but your voice is breaking. Your voice is, yes, we can't hear you properly.
Okay, even now?
It is okay. It is perfectly okay. It's all right.
I think whenever you are coming closer to the system, it might be an issue. We don't know,
Okay.
but we are just trying to solve it. When you are coming closer to the system, there is an echoing and there are some interruptions. So if you spoke a little away from the system, let's try and see if that works.
Oh, is it okay? Is it okay from this position?
It sounds okay, sir. It sounds okay.
Shall I go back?
No,
it's perfectly.
Yeah, you can continue from the active principles, sir.
Okay, so in fact, your voice is also not clear. So there is something wrong with. Okay, so this produces podophyllatoxin. Podophyllatoxin is a precursor for etoposide, and that is an effective agent in treatment of lung cancer. So this plant is basically anti-cancerous. So roots and rhizomes, they can also be used for other purposes. Okay, so germination status is very poor. Hello, so I have removed the headset.
I think it's better. Yes, you have removed the headset. Now it is sounding properly. So please continue, sir.
The sound is not clear. I'm getting the message.
Your sound is clear now. Please continue. Can you hear?
I demute it once and then I try it again.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Ghosh, but your voice is also breaking down.
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir. Hello, we can hear you, sir. Please continue. You have a connectivity issue.
Does it get better?
Yeah.
Does it get better?
We can hear you,
So
sir.
I'm getting the message from participants that voice is breaking.
Could you please log out and log in again?
What should I do?
You just log out and then log in again.
Log in again?
Yes.
I log out and I leave and log in again?
Yeah. Yes. But now you are sounding perfectly all right. I think.
I leave and I log in.
Sir, you are sounding perfectly. Now we can hear you clearly.
Okay, so this is surprising. I'm in the same position.
Yeah, I know. It is because your connectivity is not stable. That's why sometimes your voice is drifting off and sometimes it is clear.
That could be the reason.
Yes, I can see that from here. Your connectivity is not stable all the time. When it is stable, we can hear you properly. Yes.
Yes, I'm terribly sorry for this.
No, it's all right, sir. But most of the thing we are hearing it's perfectly all right, sir. Please continue.
So because this is beyond my control. Okay, so is the voice clear now?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, so this plant is known for podophyllatoxin, that is anti-cancerous plant. But this is poor germination because of the seed dormancy. Okay, thank you, Shikha. So she said that I am audible now. Yes, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so I show you here some data. So normally seeds, they germinate only 20%, and that is also after 100 days of incubation. Very slow. So after 100 days, so only 20% seeds germinate. But when we treat the seeds with gibberellic acid, 2 different concentrations, then germination improves. So more than 50% it becomes. But when we scarify the seeds means that we treat the seeds with acid. Okay, so there is already a question on this. I think this can be taken afterwards. Okay.
Yes, sir. We'll take that later. Kindly continue.
Okay, so when seeds are acid scarified and then treated with gibberellic acid, then you see more than 80% germination takes place. So with this kind of intervention, so germination can be improved. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the same thing here. So in the control, after 100 days, so that is the germination. With gibberellic acid alone, so germination becomes this much. And with acid escarification in gibberellic acid, so this goes up more than 80%. So with this treatment, seed germination can be improved in this very important medicinal plant. Next please. Next, please. So this is the control, and here it is gibberellic acid. Now, a very important issue about the seeds is that how long the seeds they can be viable, and this is known as longevity. So what is the longevity of the seeds? Because the seeds they have to be used, so they should remain viable for a long period of time. I hope students they know that some seeds they are viable only for a few weeks. In your neighborhood, you must have seen mango, Azadirachta indica, that is neem, Shoria robusta. So these are some examples where seeds they do not remain viable for a very long time. So they remain viable for a couple of months only, and after that they lose viability. What is the reason? The reason is that they cannot reduce their moisture contents below a certain level. And these seeds, they are known as recalcitrant seeds. Recalcitrant seeds. But normal seeds, they are known as orthodox seeds. Orthodox seeds, all crop plants, so wheat, etc. So most of the seeds, they are orthodox. And orthodox seeds, they can reduce their moisture contents to as low as 5%. And that is how they can remain. It is not working. I'm sorry. ये क्या फोन से बात कर सकते हैं क्या?
Sir, you're absolutely audible. No issues, sir. Sir, kindly don't follow the chat now. Kindly don't follow the chat now. Thank you, sir. We'll manage that later.
Okay. No, but I'm getting the message that it will be over after 6:30.
Professor Sharma, can I interrupt? It is because the participants' connectivity is also poor. That's why maybe he or she is not hearing it properly. But we at here are able to hear you perfectly. So you can continue, sir. Yeah, you ignore the chat right now. We can handle the issues. So please continue, sir. We are hearing you clearly.
So somebody, Anita Chakraborty, so she's saying you are very audible, sir.
Yeah, no, Anita's connectivity is poor. She is most of the times logging in and logging out. So, sir, continue, please. You can continue. It's perfectly all right. You're audible, sir.
Okay, so I was talking about. Okay, so I'm getting the message from the participants. Okay, so I was talking about this storage, this problem of longevity. So seeds they are viable, they remain viable for variable periods of time depending upon the plant species. In legumes, the longevity is in general longer. So in Albizia species, 140 years old seeds, they have been found viable. You can imagine after 140 years, so seeds they remain viable. And on the other hand, so mango and neem and shoria, so seeds they go bad after a couple of months. So they are recalcitrant seeds. So luckily, so many of these plants, they are orthodox seeds. So that means that longevity that can be enhanced. So we carried out the longevity studies. We stored the seeds for up to 30 months. And of course, the germinability goes down, but this germinability, this can be kept high with certain interventions. So this storage of seeds, so that is also to be kept into mind when seeds are to be used for propagation purposes. Next slide, please. Next slide. Ma'am Suchishmita, please, next slide. So Dr. Biswarupa Ghosh, so she had asked me to speak about Sosoria costus. I don't know what is her interest in this plant. So Sosoria costus is very, very special for Lahore. Its common name is Kut, And this is endemic to only some parts of Himalaya. So Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand. And as far as the status is concerned, this is critically endangered. And this is almost on the brink of extinction. But in the economy of Lahore, this plays a very important role. So it's a cash crop in Lahore. So farmers, they do grow this perennial crop. So it is in the field for 3-4 years. So you can see, so during winter months, this is the crop of Sosoria. And these are the Sosoria plants, mature plants. This is very, very important medicinally in all systems of medicine, Ayurveda, Unani, Tibetan, and Chinese. So Amchi, so this is practiced in Lahore and Spiti because there are Tibetan populations. There are this Buddhist populations in this part of the state. So this is primarily aphrodisiac, anodyne, anti-arthritic, antiseptic, hepatoprotective, antimicrobial, hypoglycemic. So multi-purpose drugs are produced from Sosoria costus. So next slide, please. Next, please. Okay, so that is the cultivated field of Sosoria costus in Lahore. It's the cash crop. So it provides substantial returns to the farmers. So we carried out some studies in the lab. Next, please. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, so germination can be improved with gibberellic acid and also by simply chilling. So chilling is also very effective, you see, control, but substantial improvement with chilling of the seeds. And storage studies, they do show that seeds, they lose viability gradually. So after 1 year, this is okay, but gradually this starts going down. So something has to be done about this because if seeds, they have to be used. So that longevity has to be enhanced. So as a principle, so I know West Bengal is a producer of potato. So a lot of potato is produced. And how do we store potato? We store potato in cold stores. Why? Because in cold stores, what will happen? So potato is basically starch. So if we keep potato under ambient conditions means at normal room temperature. So what will happen? Enzymes like amylases, they will be slowly acting on the starch. And after a while, you must have experienced that potato starts becoming sweet. Why? Because starch is converted to sugars. Okay, so if we want to enhance the life of potato, so what do? We keep it at low temperature in cold stores. Okay, so the same logic applies to the seeds also, because seeds, they do have food results. It does have embryo. So food results, they should not be hydrolyzed very quickly. So if they are hydrolyzed quickly, so seeds, they will lose their viability. So for storage, the same principle applies, that low temperature and low relative humidity. So they are required for this. And ex situ conservation, so many of you would know, particularly Dr. Vishnurupa Ghosh, that there are mechanisms for this. So low temperature, very low temperature, liquid nitrogen, etc. So seeds are important, and seed viability, that has to be, that has to be enhanced. Yes, next, please. Next. Okay, so here it is the same thing, that we studied these seeds for up to 5 years, 66 months. And every month we were doing this germinability. And this goes down gradually, but this can be enhanced with some interventions. So interventions are required. And what I'm presenting is our own work that is published in Journal of Applied Research on Medicinal and Aromatic Plants. Okay, so next, please. Okay, so this is under the lab conditions, under different treatments. So they germinate and they can be taken to the pots, so they do survive. And so these interventions, they do help. Next, please. Okay, so here is a very important plant, Arnibia euchroma, family Boraginaceae. So common name is Ratan Jot. You must, some of you must be knowing about this. And in Spiti Valley, so this plant is from Spiti, and this was collected by a student from an altitude of 4,200 meters. You see, so its distribution is very limited. So it is found in dry areas of alpine, West Himalaya, West Tibet, and Nepal. And so as far as the status is concerned, this is endangered. Okay, so population is diminishing, dwindling. So roots, they are used for various purposes: anti-tumor, anti-HIV activities, anti-inflammatory activities, antimicrobial activities. So common problems of cough, lung problems, and hair dandruff also, this is used for that. And very importantly, you must have heard about Ratan Jot. So this is used for coloring the food preparations by the inhabitants of Lahore and Spiti. This is a poor germination. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so here, so what we find that in control, so germination is very low. You see, so this is the germination percent. But this can be improved surprisingly by proline, and by gibberellic acid. So gibberellic acid, we know very well that this promotes seed germination. But this is very interesting that proline can also promote seed germination. I hope many of you know about proline. So proline is a special amino acid. As far as the structure is concerned, it is an amino acid. This has an extraordinary solubility in water. So you can make 12 molar solution of proline, which is not the case with other amino acids. And proline is very important in providing tolerance, adaptation to many different abiotic stresses, particularly water deficit and salinity and even toxic metals. So proline is important. So basically this is osmoprotectant, number one. And number two, this is also antioxidative. So this can scavenge free radicals. So because of these two properties, this might have promoted the germination. But this is very important here that proline can also be used for promotion of seed germination in addition to gibberellic acid. And similarly, so what is important here is that SNP is sodium nitroprusside. So sodium nitroprusside is a chemical which donates, so which produces nitric oxide. As I told you earlier, that nitric oxide is a signaling molecule. Signaling molecule means that this can trigger the events which are responsible for many different physiological processes, including seed germination. So with SNP also, you see, so seed germination is promoted. So SNP and proline, so they can also be used. So there is a wide range of chemicals, wide range of effectors which can be used to alleviate dormancy and to improve seed germination. And there is a need to test so these kind of effectors with a whole range of medicinal plants and common plants. Yes, next please. Okay, so this is also very important as far as the Lahore region is concerned. Inula racemosa, family Asteraceae. So you must have heard this name in Hindi, Pushkar moon. So it is basically Pushkar moon. But population status, this is critically endangered. Roots and seeds, they are used for medical purposes. So this is critically endangered. And actually this is grown as a cash crop in Lahore. So anti-helminthic, antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, and seeds are aphrodisiac. So status, seeds are dormant. But this dormancy, this can be simply removed by chilling. So you don't need any expensive chemicals. And gibberellic acid, of course. And type of dormancy is physiological dormancy. Next please. Next. Okay, so this is the, the last one. Okay, so this is the crop of Pushkar moon. This is being cultivated in Lahore. So snow covered during winter months. And after winter, so this grows faster. Next please. Next. Okay, so here it is. You can see that control. This has a very poor germination. So somewhere here. So, but with the gibberellic acid and with simple chilling, so close to 100% germination. So this can be achieved. So germination has to be enhanced, improved, and synchronized. So synchronization is also very important. So once again, we cannot ask the farmer to use the seeds which do not germinate simultaneously. If they are germinating in batches, then how will they harvest? Will they harvest in batches also? So that will be impractical. So synchronous seed germination is required, high seed germination that is required, and this can luckily be achieved through various interventions using physicochemical and hormonal treatments. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, so what do we learn from this? That seed dormancy can be alleviated. I can show you many examples, but that is not necessary. So just to bring home the message, so it is sufficient that seeds are dormant, but this dormancy, this can be alleviated in a species-specific manner. So proline and sodium nitroprusside, for example, they are important for Arnibia. They may not be important for Podophyllum hexandrum. So this work has to be carried out. And then, so cost-effective treatments, they have to be shortlisted. And this information on seed germination behavior, that how the seeds germinate, what is wrong with the seeds, so this can be used, this can be significant for propagation of plants for both purposes, for conservation as well as for cultivation of threatened medicinal plants. Next, please. So I will show you not the seed data, but some more plants which are important for Lahore and Spiti. So I hope you know about hops. So hops, it is used for in the beer industry. So this bitterness and the flavor of beer, so that is because of hops. So Lahore has been, Lahore region, so this is cultivated as a cash crop for many years for beer industry particularly. And besides that, this has some other medicinal uses, diuretic, sedative, analgesic, etc. But in recent years, what has happened, that hops from Russia and other countries, so that is being imported, and that is much cheaper. So farmers in Lahore, they are not happy with this. So Lahore is important for cash crops like hops. Lahore also grows potato. Very high quality, disease-free potato is cultivated in Lahore for the entire country. So that brings a lot of revenue for the state. So it's a very well-to-do state in Himachal Pradesh, Lahore and Spiti, because of this cash crops. So potato basically. So there's a Lahore and Spiti Potato Association basically, Potato Growers Association. So hops is another one. But hops is suffering in recent years because of the competition from the material being imported from Russia and other countries. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, so here is a cultivated land of hops. So during the harvesting season, so female cones, they are being harvested. They are medicinally important and they are important for beer industry. Next, please. Okay, so this plant, I hope you can recognize this. This is sea buckthorn. Sea buckthorn, Hippophae species, Hippophae salicifolia. Hippophae salicifolia is a member of family Erinaceae. And you see, so it's a very rich source of vitamin C. It is said that each berry of this plant, so that is a vitamin C capsule. It is so rich in vitamin C, very rich in vitamin C. And this has lots of phytochemicals. So that makes it nutritionally very rich. And DRDO in Lehe, Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO in Lehe, so they came out with a juice of out of these berries. So that is known as Lehe berry juice. So Lehe berry juice is available in some markets. So it's very nutritive. And so Hippophae salicifolia, this is found in Sikkim also. But in Himachal Pradesh, there are all three species of Hippophae present. So Hippophae salicifolia, Hippophae rhamnoides, and Hippophae tibetana. This plant is important not only nutritionally, this can fix nitrogen. So this is ecologically very important. So this enriches the soil in nitrogen. And my dear young students, they would know that in legumes, for example, nitrogen fixation occurs through rhizobia. But in some plants, so it is not through rhizobia, it is through other organisms. And among these other organisms, Frankia is most important. So Frankial association, actinorhizal association. So Hippophae has Frankial association. So with Frankia, this fixes nitrogen, enriches the soil in nitrogen. And it's a very good soil binder. So in an ecological context, it's a very important plant for cold desert areas particularly. So China has produced many cosmetic products and medicinal products from Hippophae. Next, please. Next. Okay, so Phagopyrum esculentum. This is known as buckwheat. And buckwheat, so this is in hills, that is known as ogal or ogla. But in plains, this is known as kathu or kutu. So kutu is the same that we use in fast days. Okay, so during fasting, we can eat this Phagopyrum esculentum. It's a very important plant nutritionally. Secondary metabolites, flavonoids, rich in flavonoids, and therefore this is antioxidative. But what is the problem in Phagopyrum esculentum? So this has indeterminate growth. Indeterminate growth, I hope you understand, that plants, they continue to grow. Okay, so what will happen that mature parts of the plant, they are in flowering, but young plants, young parts, they are still flowering. So fruits and flower, they are present at the same time because of the indeterminate growth. And this poses the problem of harvesting. So when to harvest the plants? So this becomes very difficult. Otherwise, this is a very, very important plant for mountain regions. Yes, next, please. Next, please. Okay, so Picrorhiza carua. So this is known as kutki and Scroflariaceae, a very important medicinal plant. So this grows up to 4,800 meters above sea level. Next. Dioscorea deltoidea. So this is very interesting Hindi name. This is known as Singly Mingly. It's a member of Dioscoreaceae. And Dioscoreas, you know, so they do have tuberous, they do have tubers, rhizomes. And these rhizomes, so why this is important? So this is important because this has steroids. And these steroids, so they are used for development of female contraceptives. So CDRI has come out with some preparations out of the Singly Mingly. CDRI, Central Drug Research Institute, Lucknow. Next, please. Next. Okay, so here is an orchid, Dactylorhiza hatageria. So this is known as Salam Panja. Salam Panja because its rhizomes, the root, they look like a panja. So 5 fingers like that. So Salam Panja or Panja, Hath Panja. So like a hand. So this is endangered, and roots are aphrodisiac and many different purposes. So these are some important medicinal plants of this region. Next, please. Okay, so I was with Himachal Pradesh University Shimla for a long time when we carried out this work in high altitude regions of Himachal Pradesh. And now I have moved to, 2 years back, I moved to Sikkim Central University. Some of you must be familiar with Sikkim. It's a beautiful city. So Rumtek Monastery. Next, please. Next. Kanchenjunga. So Sikkim is known for this. Next. So Sikkim has a very strong biodiversity, many endemic plants. This is especially very, very significant from the point of view of rhododendrons. Can you imagine more than 40 species, more than 40 different species of rhododendron are found in Sikkim. So these are some 4 species of rhododendron that are found in Sikkim. Next. Sikkim is also known for orchids, many different orchids. You see, so these are orchids from Sikkim, so which can be, so horticulturally, this is very important, floriculturally, this is very, very important. I hope you can, some of them you can recognize. So who have been in Northeast, in Meghalaya particularly. So this is lady sleeper, okay, and many of are familiar, you are familiar with many of them, but Sikkim is rich in this. Next, please. Okay, so the state animal, red panda. So there is diminishing population, but nevertheless we do have this. So large cardamom, badi ilaichi, large cardamom. So this contributes to the revenue of the state. And Sikkim is the largest producer of large cardamom in the country. So it's a cash crop, so grown, cultivated. And it's a government-owned tea garden, Temi Tea Garden. So Temi Garden, this is owned by Sikkim government, and this is completely organic, much in demand. So it is, it's a typical souvenir. So somebody comes to Gangtok, goes to the MG road, so he would ask for first flush Temi, Temi. So that is harvested in April. It's a very high quality tea. Next, please. Okay, I think I have to thank you. I'm very sorry for the interruptions, but this was beyond my control. I could not help it. So I hope you would visit Sikkim in the near future when the pandemic allows, when situation normalizes. So you're welcome to Sikkim and to the Department of Botany. So thank you very much. I'm not sure how much this could be conveyed because of the voice break.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we have had 95% of your presentation was very audible.
How much?
95% was very audible.
Not bad.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
I just want to thank you and tell you that you were reluctant to talk about your work, but we wanted you because we thought we want to introduce to our participants the seed as a capsule of the genetic capsule of the plants, how important it is to know the ecology of each seed in the whole scheme of biodiversity conservation. Sir has talked about Sausoria and all other plants, medicinally important, endemic, also having germination issues, largely in the trade market. So it is very important to know, have a great scientific background of these plants, the germination ecology, so that we can devise wisely their conservation aspects. We can approach the conservation with a sound scientific background. Thank you for your wonderful deliberation, sir. I would request Dr. Shuchishmita Chakraborty, our co-host, to kindly take up the interaction session.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Vishwarupa. I must thank you, and I must thank the organizers, Principal Ma'am, and all other colleagues that you invited me to share our work on medicinal plants.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vishwarupa Ghosh. And sir, there are a few questions both from YouTube as well as those watching here at Zoom. So I'll take up a question from YouTube first. This is from Farhan Ahmed. He asks, sir, why we have selected 1 millimolar concentration of GA3? Would higher concentration be better for seed longevity?
Farhan, thank you for this question. So actually, before selecting the concentrations of any effector in physiology or in biochemistry or in molecular biology, so we do carry out some preliminary experiments. So where we do find that which concentrations they are effective and which are not. And so we try to keep on the lower side. If we are achieving 80% domination with 1 millimolar, that is good enough. Millimolar, that is millimolar. So for some physiological processes, so this can be micromolar. Actually, what happens is that different substances, they do have different range of physiological concentrations. Okay, so hormones, they are effective in low concentrations. But say, for example, if you are applying proline, so proline doesn't work the way hormones work. So it is required, because this is an osmoregulator. So what will happen? So proline will have to be taken in high concentrations. So it depends upon the function of a molecule. It depends upon the mechanism of action of the molecule, on which the concentration choice that depends. So hormones, they are usually effective in very low concentrations. So we chose on the basis of some preliminary experiments.
And thank you, sir. Yes. I hope your question has been answered, Farhan. And the next question is from Samrat Banerjee. He says, thank you, madam. Can we overcome the seed dormancy by in vitro propagation method?
Yes, yes, we can do. I said that micro propagation is a way to propagate the plants, but that will require some infrastructure. So you need a tissue culture lab, etc. So seed-based elevation. So this is much cheaper, much convenient, but of course, scientifically this can be done in vitro. So micro propagation has been exercised. This has been practiced for many plant species. That is the standard way of propagating the plants, which otherwise are difficult to grow. That is right.
Okay, the next question is from Suparna Bhattacharya. Does carbon nanotubes used in vitro propagation acts as antifungal agent in foliage plants?
I think this is not related with this work, but this carbon nanotubes actually. So I've a little familiarity about this, but I think this is not related with this carbon nanotubes and fungi. But how can this be? Maybe they can be used. I have no idea whether they have been tested for seed germination studies. But maybe that's a good idea if that is effective for fungus. So somebody can try them for seed physiological functions also.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. There have been a lot of messages both at the YouTube and here also, thanking you for your wonderful presentation and very informative and interesting one. And especially some of them have appreciated those pictures of, the orchids and all those wonderful places at Sikkim. And we hope, we hope that we will one day take our students to your place and you'll give a good, yes. And so because, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for being here with us.
Hello, Shuchishmita.
Yes.
There's another question from Shomrat Banerjee. Please take up the question.
Yes, this is there was one question at the very beginning of the this webinar. This is a little general question, but I'll surely take up this question. And thank you, Dr. Gangopadhyay, for reminding me. It is from Samrat Banerjee. He asked, my question is, can we omit the collection and submission part in our syllabus of botany to conserve biodiversity?
Oh, yes, I think this is very often talked about. So we all have to, I think this is thank you for his very kind concern. And in fact, all academics, they are concerned with this these days. There is a lot of awareness. And whenever in the field, I think we should keep this in mind, actually. We should keep this in mind. So we should have an idea about the distribution of the plants, about their available populations, and we should not damage them. So that is very, very clear. I think there is no true opinions about it. So plants are precious, and some of them they are already they have suffered a lot. So we cannot afford to play around just like that. Go and collect and bring them home and throw, do nothing. So that is, and they are very slow growing. Some of them, they grow very slow. This is not potato, this is not wheat that you are irrigating, you are providing fertilizers. They're growing in harsh environments of Himalayas. Minus 30 degrees Celsius, they have to spend a couple of months. And then they do come up afterwards. So you think about their life cycle, about how they are surviving. So nature has been kind. So nature has provided survival strategies. And out of these survival strategies, they do produce unique chemicals. Okay, so if the same plant is brought to, say, Punjab or Chandigarh or Haryana, this number one, this will not grow. But if you make it grow, this will not produce the same chemicals. Because this is not, it is basically responding to the surroundings, responding to the adversities.
Thank you, Dr. Shuchishmita Chakravarti, for taking up the interaction. And the last question has also opened up a scope for us to spread a message to all our faculty participants, including ourselves, that when we take our students for field excursion, we need a sound knowledge of the phytogeography of the area, the endemic status and threatened status of the species. Maybe we could go for photographs, more of photographs, and one or two collections for our herbariums.
By the way,
that should be allowed for the students.
So by the way, I would like to add that in Sikkim, the regulations are very stringent. So we are not allowed to, even if an MSc student has to work for dissertation, so he or she has to seek permission from Forest Department. So without the permission, they cannot go to the forest and collect the plants. If I apply for a project, so I have to seek permission from the authorities in Sikkim government to work on these plants. For example, I started work on some land races of rice. So I have applied to the government for this permission, and I'm still waiting for the response. So this kind of regulations, so they need to be in place. They need to, so that the way out actually. Best is that from our side, so we educate ourselves about them and we behave in such a manner that we do not harm these populations, rare populations.
Thank you so much, sir.
Somebody was asking about books.
Yes, please, could you just
my advice to the students will be that please read. Reading is very, very important. Reading, besides information and knowledge, reading gives us vocabulary. We need vocabulary to communicate, whether verbal communication or written communication. In research, all of you will appreciate that communication is very, very important. So please read some good books. And these days, there are lots of good books, lots of good books. So for example, in plant physiology, so my colleagues, I can tell this Buchanan. So Buchanan is the best book. So we have the second edition, 2015, etc. So it's a very good thing that you are concerned about the books. They are available in resources are available in many, many libraries these days.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really a wonderful interaction and I think very useful, and some very key issues of students of biological science have come up, and so happy to see their concern about biodiversity conservation. We wish you good luck in life, and I would like to end our technical sessions and go over to our next program. I invite my colleague, Dr. Priyankudhar, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks to the speakers and the audience.
So first of all, I thank everybody, principal ma'am, all faculty members, all participants for sparing their time to listen to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Priyankudhar, are you online? Host, Dr. Priyankudhar, are you online?
Hello,
yes,
Dr. Ghosh?
I'm online. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible. We are starting with the vote of thanks session. I ask you to kindly deliver a vote of thanks.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ghosh, for providing me the opportunity. Good evening to all of you. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. On behalf of the organizing committee, I express deep gratitude to the first keynote speaker, Sri Ranjan Chatterjee, for sharing his vast experience and delivering an excellent talk on environmental issues and role of the National Green Tribunal in our country. His talk has opened our eyes to various environmental damages caused by anthropogenic activities and its remediation by the National Green Tribunal. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for the second keynote speaker, Professor Shanti Swarup Sharma, for sharing his findings and opinion on the seed physiological aspects of valuable medicinal plants from the Western Himalayan high altitude and implication for cultivation and conservation. On a personal note, I convey hearty thanks to Professor Sharma for allowing me to cherish my sweet memories of doing research on the health-promoting properties of trans-Himalayan medicinal plants of Ladakh like Sibakthon, apricot, etc. We are extremely delighted and indebted to hear from both of you, sir. I hope your deliberations and encouraging words will inspire us to take the new initiative in these areas. I convey special thanks to the students, faculty members, and all other participants who have shown their interest and actively participated in this webinar to make it successful. Our Honorable Principal Ma'am, Professor Papia Chakraborty, has provided us constant support. She is a great source of inspiration and encouragement for all of us. Thank you so much, ma'am. Once again, I want to state that we are all most grateful to all speakers on this virtual platform today. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Dhar. A wonderful and very warm vote of thanks to our speakers and our participants and our principal ma'am for making this happen, this webinar series. Because we have a long journey to go. We are covering as many areas as possible in biodiversity conservation. And eventually we hope to reach some windows that would open up to find answers to various questions. The pandemic has opened this window for us to question ourselves, reassess our actions, and revisit our role in biodiversity conservation. And we have our next session, our next day of this series on 29th of August, same time. We'll have speakers from Florida Museum, Dr. Narayani Bharve. She'll be speaking on ecological niche modeling. We'll be having a speaker from the Transdisciplinary University of Bangalore, Health Sciences and Technology, Dr. Devabrata Shaha, will be speaking on the role of IUCN in biodiversity conservation. And I'm sure many of you will be finding career options also in all these webinar series. I'm sure our student participants will see a gateway opening for them for a career in biological sciences or social sciences or other sciences. That is our motto, to keep going with the cause of biodiversity conservation and sustainable development. And we are so humbled and so grateful for the presence of such illustrious speakers who have given their lifetime in the area of biodiversity conservation in their own capacity. So thank you one and all. I hand over to our co-host, Dr. Shuchishmita Chakraborty, to sign off and give some knowledge about the feedback. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I first thank all the participants and thank you, Professor Sharma, and also Mr. Chatterjee for agreeing to come here and deliver the lecture. It was very interesting. And I think we have come to the end of the program. And so I close this, formally I close this meeting here. Thank you all. Thank you, participants. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Dipanshu?
Yes.
Please end the meeting.
So should I say something?
End the meeting. Just end the meeting.